The families have to do 250 hours of sweat equity. At least 100 of that is in construction. And of course, their family, their friends, school groups, church groups, other organizations can come out and do the work with them. But it's just part of that partnership and that commitment they're making to the community.
Welcome to In Brown County. Your front porch, the people, places, and stories that make Brown County, Indiana, one of a kind. I'm your host, Chris Schneider, and every week, we bring you conversations with local voices, behind-the-scenes looks at events, and the best of small-town life. Whether you're a longtime local or a weekend wanderer, there's something here for you. Let's get into it. Today, we're talking all about Brown County Habitat for Humanity. Joining us is Sue Lindborg, who is the president, and Jim Snyder, who is the executive director. And for those of you who don't know, Habitat for Humanity is celebrating 35 years helping to build our community here in Brown County. So Sue and Jim, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you for having us.
Now, before we jump into Habitat and all the wonderful things that you guys are doing, one thing that I think everyone asks in this county when they first meet somebody is, how did you end up in Brown County?
So my story is maybe a little unique. I'm sixth generation Brown County. My great-great-great-grandfather located here from Kentucky in 1830. That was 6 years before Brown County was founded. And he actually bought some land around Bean Blossom in Nashville and donated some land for what would eventually become Nashville. So I tell everyone I'm sixth generation Brown County, and it makes sense to me to work for Habitat for Humanity now, because my kids weren't raised here because we couldn't afford to live here and work in public safety.
Well, 1986, I think, my husband at the time and I decided we wanted to raise our children somewhere where everybody knew each other. And so we moved to Brown County in the southeast corner on Becks Grove Road and bought our house then for $40,000, believe it or not. Stayed here for 22 years, and after the kids left, and anyway, long story short, I moved to Kentucky. Was gone for 15 years and just returned 5 years ago because this felt like home. And my friends were here, and I bought a house built in 1954, one of the original subdivisions in Brown County, and have been renovating her ever since. So that's my long and short story.
Wonderful. And I think it's one thing that's always interesting to me is how many people end up leaving, but then everybody seems to come back. Right? There's something about this place that just draws people.
Yeah. Yes.
Now with Habitat, so I had mentioned a second ago, this is your 30th year. And I think a lot of people some people I know aren't even aware of Habitat. And I don't think a lot of people realize you've been around that long. So fill us in a little bit of that journey over the last 35 years to where Habitat is today.
So in 1989, the high school building trades teacher at the time, Chris Todd, got together with a group of civic and community leaders and some of the churches and said, we really have a housing crisis in Brown County. We need affordable housing. So they talked about it, and they were able to seek and obtain affiliation through Habitat for Humanity International, which is a lengthy process in itself. In March of 1990, they started construction on their first home over on Salt Creek Road, and that was for a family of four, a husband, a wife, and two kids, and they completed their first house in 1990. Since then, this is our 24th build. We are working now to build 2 houses a year. We want to be building 3 by 2030. And Habitat for Humanity in Brown County's continued to thrive when a lot of the other affiliates have had to shutter their operations. And to put that into perspective, prior to COVID, there were 63 Habitat for Humanity's affiliates in the state of Indiana, and today there's 42. And not a lot of those are directly related to COVID, but it was operational issues that were exacerbated by COVID. So our journey's really been one of many blessings. We have a fantastic core group of volunteers. We have extremely dedicated supporters, financial and otherwise, and we have a lot of strategic partnerships with other non-for-profits and the business community that's really helped to insulate us from some of those factors that have caused others to have to close.
Now, kind of a random question popped into my head as you were talking. Do you think some of the reason why Habitat has been able to survive and thrive in Brown County is because of the community itself?
100%. It's the community. As I said, we're an affiliate of 2 full-time staff, myself and our construction manager. We do about 8 brush with kindness projects a year, and we're building 2 houses a year now. None of that the 2 of us could do if it wasn't for volunteers. Our volunteers are very active. They're very robust. One of the things we're starting to struggle with a little bit is they're aging to the point where they don't want to climb ladders and raise walls, so they're taking on more support functions, and we're really encouraging them to involve their children and even their grandchildren and make volunteering with Habitat a family legacy. But short of that, it's the community. Without them, we couldn't survive.
It's interesting that you mentioned that Chris Todd started all this, because actually, when I moved down here 5 years ago, the guy that built my house was Chris Todd.
Okay.
So it just kind of goes to show what a small community this is and how everyone kind of knows you.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Now, I know with Habitat, there are a lot of myths and misconceptions. I know you guys build houses. You just mentioned something else that you do that I was entirely unaware of.
Yeah, it's our Brush with Kindness project. So Habitat in Brown County has 2 arms. We have our home buyer program, which is what you typically think of with Habitat for Humanity. We build homes and we sell those to qualified applicants at a 0% interest loan. And then we have our Brush with Kindness, which is really our more active branch just because of the nature of what it is. And Brush with Kindness is a program that partners with volunteers and supporters to be able to go out and do projects for the county's disabled and elderly population to help them age in place and stay in their home and not have to go to a facility, which we think is extremely crucial, especially in a community like Brown County, who has one of the fastest aging populations in the state of Indiana. So Brush with Kindness will do things, for example, building accessibility ramps. We do winterization and weatherization. We help with some emergency repairs if there's gutters torn down in a storm or something and it's causing problems with homeowners insurance and it's an elderly or a disabled family member who owns the home. We'll go out and we'll do that work, or we'll partner with some of the subcontractors in the county to go out and do that work on our behalf.
What? So, like I said, that's something I had no idea that you guys were doing.
Yeah.
Before you just mentioned it. But I know when we've talked before, you had mentioned that there are just some misconceptions sometimes about what Habitat does. What are those that you commonly run into?
So we run into a few more frequently than others. And the first one is that Habitat for Humanity is a charity, and it's really not. It's a partnership. We partner with qualified applicants who have to meet some pretty rigorous guidelines as far as income. Their debt to income ratio has to be below a certain percentage. Their monthly housing burden has to be below a certain percentage, really to ensure that we set them up for success and they're able to pay the loan over the life of the loan. We don't want to put them in a situation to where they lose their house and they're foreclosed on. And with that, we really try to encourage people to apply. And we're finding that people are saying, well, I don't think I'm deserving, or I think there's someone else more deserving than I am. And the fact of the matter is, as I said, they pay a mortgage just like anyone else. They pay an escrow that involves their property taxes and their homeowner's insurance. The only difference is Habitat for Humanity, with our strategic partnerships, we're able to offer a 0% interest loan, which is phenomenal. It saves the homeowners tens of thousands, if not a few $100,000 in interest payments over the life of a 30-year mortgage. And that's where the big benefit is for the partner family. In addition to that, one of the big, I think, misconceptions is people think, well, this is kind of like Make-A-Wish. So you have to have some tragic event or loss in your life. And that's simply not the case either. In every application cycle, and we usually open up to one in the spring and one in the fall every year, we have people say, well, I really need the house. There's 6 of us living in a 2-bedroom apartment, but nobody's sick or nobody's injured. And that's just not the case either. Again, the families have to do 250 hours of sweat equity. At least 100 of that is in construction. And of course, their family, their friends, school groups, church groups, other organizations can come out and do the work with them. But it's just part of that partnership and that commitment they're making to the community. And then the last thing I will think is one of the most concerning misconceptions for me is that the homes we build are substandard. And I know you were taking some photographs of this house that we're in front of today. This is a really outstanding constructed house. It's 2x6 exterior walls. It's on a crawl space. There's a sump pump in the crawl space. We have to meet actually more stringent building codes than what the average contractor would build, because Habitat for Humanity International wants us to include as many ADA requirements as we can when it comes to door openings and appliances to make those easy to access. And then with the energy efficiency standards, we're really kind of almost held to a higher standard. So they're exceptional quality homes. The deal is they're just not custom to where they can have granite countertops or marble floors. The homeowner does get some selections as far as color palette, floor coverings, paint, and different finishings, but there's kind of built on a template, so to speak.
Well, sure, and that makes a lot of sense. Standardizes it,
It does. It helps us to control costs, and it helps us to, for example, this house is getting a fence. That's not something that is standard on a Habitat house, but our construction manager does a really good job of controlling budget because of that. And he likes to do an extra for each homeowner. And when we spoke to this particular homeowner, a privacy fence was a big concern for her, as well as our board of directors, given the proximity to the highway.
Absolutely, because we are sitting right
on the highway.
But at the same time, this is a really nice spot for a house, right? We're right in Helmsburg.
Yeah.
I mean, I can tell just walking around, right? There's no lack of quality here. That's blatantly obvious. And I know from working with Chris Todd before, if he was the one that set a lot of this stuff in motion, he is a stickler on every single detail.
Yeah. We're really blessed. One of the things I tell people is a reason why we've continued to thrive over 35 years and why we're looking so forward to the next 35 is all of the work our founders and those that came before us did. They did an outstanding job of managing their fiscal responsibility. They were proactive in saving for the future, and we have a dynamic board of directors. Our board of directors is 12 members strong, and every single one of them is on at least one other subcommittee. And when we have our board of director meetings monthly, there's always input from everyone. It's really something that is a tribute to what they did before us, because we've just taken that model and expanded on it.
And that's a large board.
It is.
For a nonprofit. I mean, a lot of times it's 2 or 3 people. You have a board of 12. How many volunteers do you have over the course?
So over the course of actually, I can tell you we started a new volunteer engagement platform called Civic Champs about a year ago, and we've had 124 unique volunteers over the course of that time. And one of the important factors that sets us apart, I think, from a lot of affiliates is about 25% of those are regular volunteers that show up on every build, show up on some of those Brush with Kindness projects. As I said earlier, even if it's a situation where they can't directly be involved in the construction, they're bringing lunch, they're showing up to the site to coach other volunteers to kind of teach them up. So we're using this as an educational process to perpetuate and grow our future.
Which I think is really important, because I'm one of those people that I grew up in Indy. I was never around construction. Now I have a house. I don't know how to do anything.
Yeah.
So that's an important skill for people to learn, and volunteering obviously being a great way to gain those.
It is, and that's one of the reasons we're so excited to have our partner families join us. 100 of those 250 hours has to be in the construction of their home. For example, this particular family, they've been on the job site almost every week without fail, and they're learning a lot as they go. They've helped to set trusses. They've helped to frame and raise walls. If that's not something they can do directly, like electrical or plumbing, they're still out here working around the subcontractors, learning what it is. And then we have a growing homeowner education subcommittee. It's our family nurturing committee that has them go through various classes on all aspects of home ownership, from interior and exterior maintenance to setting a budget and to shopping around for your homeowner's insurance, which is crucial to keep your costs down.
Absolutely. And I know when we've talked before, one of the things that both of you are pretty passionate about is the idea that you're not just building houses. What you're really doing is building community. So let's dive into that a little bit, because I think sometimes the community piece can get lost in the actual project.
Yeah, when people think of Habitat for Humanity, they think it's a situation where we find a piece of property, we build a house, and we move on. And that's not the case. We're creating long-lasting relationships with those homeowners. We hold the mortgage. We have it serviced through a third-party company, so they get credit on their credit report for all the good work they do over the life of the loan. But we really create that relationship where we have events and we invite them out to events. We do additional education pieces. We keep in touch with our families. That's kind of unique because when you think about it, we're acting as the bank, and a lot of your banks don't invite you to other events or see you in the community, especially one as close-knit as this. But really, it also is on a larger scale, the relationships we're having with other nonprofits. There's so many nonprofits in Brown County that are doing good work, but previously they were duplicating efforts, and we're really focusing now on enhancing the efforts of those that we can and bringing them together into a partnership with us, so we're not duplicating, but we're expanding that work. We have a great relationship with the Brown County Community Foundation, and I tell people they really kind of are the glue that holds the community together in a lot of cases. And when people think of the Community Foundation, they think of grants, and the grants are important to us, but really our goal is to become independent of those grants to where we don't need them anymore. And the Community Foundation provides networking opportunities. They provide education and training. They provide access to studies that we wouldn't have on our own. So that's an example of that strategic partnership to build community, because as we build our capabilities, we're no longer dependent on the grant, and that leaves that money for someone else that's coming up.
So let's focus in there a little bit, because I'm curious if you're trying to build collaboration between different groups in the community. From your end, is there anything that you see in the community that would help foster that more that we're not currently doing?
Absolutely. I think one of the things during my tenure as executive director so far has been a big push to support the schools and to support mental health in the community. Both of those directly impact quality of life for all citizens, whether they're in the mental health system or they have kids or grandkids in the school system or not. There's so many things that are systemic to that. The school system's in decline. There's no doubt about that. Since 2016, their population steadily declined to the point where they've lost 30% of where they were in 2016. And if that continues to happen, it's no secret that there's going to be a consolidation attempt at some point, and we're going to lose our schools. And we don't want to do that. So we're working to do some targeted marketing and to do some additional workshops with the teachers, more than half of which have to live outside of the community and drive into the county to teach our kids. And I've talked to a lot of teachers and said, I love the community. I wish I could live here, but I can't. And it's to the point where I'm having to look for another job if I can't find something to do here. Same for our mental health clinicians. Well over half of our mental health clinicians live outside of the community and commute into Brown County to serve our citizens. And we really feel like if we could do a better job of telling our story and we could make the access to the programs more attainable and easier for people to understand and dispel some of those myths, we could provide some workplace housing here in the community and build the workforce so people don't have to live outside of the community, or worse yet, vote with their feet and go work for another school system or another county agency.
And that's one of the biggest problems I see in serving on all these different committees and learning more about Brown County. Thinking back to when I moved here in the 80s, like I said, my house was $40,000. Houses were affordable. Land was affordable. And then came the tourist home situation where we have over 300 some short-term rentals in the county. That takes away from the supply of housing, affordable housing that our employees and the school employees can live in. And to me, that's always my mission, is to try to see what we can do to turn that around, because if all our homes, or a good percentage of our homes, are unoccupied throughout the year, that takes away from the inventory for people to actually buy a house and live here.
Absolutely. Focusing in on that affordable housing piece for a second, do you think there is any, like, if you had a magic wand and could change one thing to make housing more affordable in Brown County, do you know what that would be?
Land.
Yeah, I was going to say land.
Yeah.
Land.
One of the things that we struggle with the most is accessibility to land. I said earlier, there's 42 other Habitat affiliates around the state. In February, Brown County was selected to host a state executive director conference. Out of all of the participants, there were, I think, 23 affiliates represented. All but 2 or 3 received land from county commissioners, city county councils. They received it free or discounted. Brown County doesn't have access to that. We have gone to the commissioners, and we're working to build a relationship with the Brown County commissioners to where we can get some land that's county owned, that's not being used. That gets it back on the tax rolls, and it helps to address this housing shortage. And it really is a significant shortage. A 2023 Indiana Upland study found that by 2030, we'll need 124 houses selling for $250,000 or less just to keep up with the need. And that's house sales. That's not including rentals. Obviously, Habitat can't tackle that, building 2 or 3 houses a year. So it's going to take a collaboration, and it's going to require everybody to do their part.
Now, when it comes to the land issue, I know one of the things that we face in Brown County is just it's not easy to build, right? Because we have these we have gorgeous hills, but you can't build really well on the side of a hill.
Yeah.
And we have very little flat. We have very little in the way of sewer in a lot of places. So we have to do septic systems, which come with another whole host of environmental concerns and requirements that you have to abide by. So where kind of just basically where is there the land? Because there's not much flat. It's not easy to build it.
So we've, over the 35 years, we've become really good at building in some spots you would look at and think, gee, they shouldn't put a house there. And I think a lot of people in the community have. We don't want to put houses on stilts, obviously, but we've become really good at making it work. And we're to the point now where we have to find larger parcels of land to give us the stability and to help us control our costs. The land we're sitting on today was less than a third of an acre. It cost us $30,000. The property for the house that we just completed last July in Nashville was $45,000 for a town lot. Obviously, that's not sustainable over a long period of time. Most recently, we were looking at 48 acres in southern Brown County for $470,000. That's less than $10,000 an acre. I think in today's market, that's a really good deal. So we were excited about that project. There was some issues with some of the land, but we had a plan to make it work. And I think it's important to point out, we're trying to build a house on 2 to 3 acres. We don't want to build 3 houses to an acre like a lot of these community developments are, where they buy up farmland and pack as many houses as they can. That's not good for quality of life. It's not good for friendly neighborhoods. We want them to have some land so they can homestead, or their kids can have a nice big yard to go out and play in. So on this 48 acres, we were looking at only putting 22 houses over the course of 7 years. But one of the issues we ran into with that was the neighbors. And Brown County Habitat for Humanity has a negative stigma. And I think it goes back to those misconceptions and those myths we had talked about as far as substandard housing. And we're building houses and giving it away to poor people for free, and they're not going to maintain them. And that's just simply not the case. So we do have a public relation concern that we have to address. And that's why we're grateful for you and for the folks at the newspaper that really highlight the work that we do.
But I think that's an important distinction. You're not building homes for any one people should be worried about. To your point earlier, it's the teachers, it's the public servants, it's the government employees that work in this county. That just can't afford to live here. And so they live in Columbus or Bloomington or Morgantown.
Absolutely. And when we talk to those people, as I said, they all tell us that they want to make Brown County part of they want to make Brown County home. They just can't afford to do it when the average house is selling for well over $300,000 and they have a high interest rate. It just makes it unattainable. And that's where that 0% interest really pays big dividends, because it makes the home affordable over the life of the mortgage. For example, the house that we built in Nashville most recently was a 4-bedroom, 2-bath, 1,400 square foot. As I said, 2x6 walls, a crawl space, new construction. That mortgage, including the escrow, is $816 a month. There's nowhere in Brown County you could rent a comparable home for $816 a month. We have people that tell us, I'm renting a 2-bedroom apartment with a mold issue for $1,250 a month. So, I think it's really a situation where we have the solution. We know what it is. We have some hurdles, such as the land accessibility, such as the public relations, and dispelling those myths and misconceptions, and encouraging our current volunteers to really kind of tell our story for us to their families and their friends, and help develop that next generation of volunteer.
Fantastic. And so we're getting a little close to the end of our time, but I want to give both of you the opportunity, because I know we've touched on a lot here, but I'm sure there are things in your mind that haven't occurred to me that we haven't touched on. So what have we not touched on that you think is really important for everyone to know?
So as I said earlier, the community's the reason why we've not just survived, we've thrived over the last 35 years, hands down. And I think when we talk to people, they say, I'd really like to get involved, but I'm just not sure how. And there's so many ways to support us. We have an attainable homeownership tax credit program going on right now where they can donate between $500 and $20,000, and 50% of that is a tax credit on their state of Indiana tax burden. We have Cars for Homes. I know there's people out there who have cars that they're not using or junk cars that they want towed away. Habitat will tow those away for free. They'll scrap them or sell them, and the proceeds go to us, and the donor gets a potential tax donate or a tax credit for their donation. We're always looking. Every day we have a build, and we're building 3 days a week here. We need someone to provide lunch, and burden were lifted off of us if someone would say, gee, I can come out and provide lunch once a week for the volunteers. But really, it's just that we are here. We've been here for 35 years, as you said, and we're excited to see what the next 35 years has. We're expanding. As I said, we're going to build 3 houses a year by 2030. We're looking at developing a habitat restore here in Brown County, which I think would be fantastic for the community.
So what is it?
So a habitat restore is an arm of Habitat that helps to generate revenue to support the building of houses. And what that is we take donated items such as building materials, such as good quality appliances, housewares, furniture, and we sell that similar to a thrift store model. And all of those proceeds go back to Habitat for Humanity to support the construction of new affordable homes in the community. So we're looking at doing that, and we're also looking at expanding our footprint. So Brown County has about 15,000 people, and the funding that we get and the grants that we're accessible for do take that into account. One of the things we're looking at doing is potentially expanding into Bartholomew County, who's been unserved by Habitat for years, and potentially eventually into Jackson County, who unfortunately is one of those affiliates that have had to dissolve over the last few years.
So it sounds like the last 35 years have been great foundation. The next 35 years, you're looking at expansion, increasing your impact, and really doubling down on the service.
Yeah, absolutely. As I said, we've got great people that support us. The businesses in the community are fantastic. They're very receptive when we need something. When we have build days, we have people showing up with a smile on their face. Our board of directors is engaged. It's just growing our capabilities. And as you said, doubling down and building on the foundation that's been laid for us.
Real quick, just so that everybody knows, what is the best way? Because I'm sure there are people watching this and they're going, hey, I want to get involved with Habitat. I want to help them out. I want to donate. I want to bring lunch, whatever that may be. How do they get in touch with you? How do they get involved?
So one of the best ways is to go through our website at browncountyhabitat.org. And when they go there, they can volunteer. They can donate, explore all the options for donations so they can tailor it to what is easiest for them. They can see a little bit about our history. And one of the most exciting things is they can take a video tour of our most recently completed house and see for themselves what a Habitat house in Brown County really looks like. They can call the office at 812-988-4926. And then we're very active on Facebook, so they can follow us on Facebook as well. And there they get all kinds of news and updates, not only on the builds, but Brush with Kindness projects, fundraisers such as our golf outing coming up in a couple of weeks, and they can see when the application cycle is going to open up next.
Fantastic. So for everybody listening or watching the video, we will have links to Habitat and their Facebook just down in the show notes. So if you just scroll down, it'll be right there available for you. Now, before we wrap up, I have 3 questions for each of you that are just kind of general Brown County questions.
Oh boy.
And the first one would be, what is one word that describes Brown County to you?
I think for me, supportive. As we've said throughout the podcast, the support we get from the community really means that we can do the work we do. And without that, we would have ceased to exist a long time ago.
I would say family. It has a feeling of family here, and not necessarily blood relation, but just people that would do anything for anybody that needs help.
Absolutely. What is one favorite local meal or treat that you enjoy?
Boy, as you can tell, I like my food. I think for me, it's probably the fried biscuits and apple butter at Rafters. To me, that just kind of summarizes Brown County all in one little basket.
I love the nachos at Rafters.
Yeah.
That's the only thing I order when I go there.
Definitely a great place to go. And the final question I have for you: what is your favorite way to spend a Saturday afternoon in Bell?
Yeah, we like to go to the park or just to go out to family property. There's so much in Brown County to do. And a lot of times people think Brown County and it's synonymous with Nashville, just like you think Marion County and it's all Indianapolis. And I'm not knocking Nashville. It's absolutely beautiful and there's a ton to do. But this community is so rich in different opportunities and there's so much that people can do. And just going out to a kind of a privately known fishing hole or hiking a trail is the way we spend our weekends.
I'm retired, so every day is a Saturday. It's like, I don't know what I do.
Sue's one of the hardest working board presidents I know. I don't know how she finds time to sleep when I'm getting emails at 10 o'clock at night.
And I'm with her. I'm on the RDC with her.
Oh, okay.
I'm getting those emails late too.
Yeah.
Maybe you need to relax a little bit.
You get them when I think about them.
Yeah, she's doing retirement wrong.
Thank you so much for being on the podcast.
Thank you.
I've really enjoyed this conversation. And I'm really looking forward to the next 35 years to see what Habitat does in this community.
We're excited. Thank you for giving us the opportunity to share our story.
Let me know how those 35 years go. I probably won't be here. But thank you, Chris. Appreciate it.
Thanks for joining us on In Brown County. If you like today's episode, be sure to follow, leave a review, and share with someone who loves Brown County as much as you do. We'll see you next week, right here on the front porch.